Okay, so I'll start off with a story. In 1956, so basically, the oh, Catherine's right. Okay, perfect timing, Catherine. I don't know if you hear us yet. Oh, okay, perfect timing. We're just starting. Okay. So so the Rebbe established a little village in Israel called Kfar Chabad. Um, it's a small village, not far, a few minutes from the Lod airport, where the airport is in Israel. And it was like mainly established by Chabad people who ran away from the communists and um, needed a place to go. And one of the places the Rebbe said is to go to Israel and help establish this community. Until today, it's there. It's much bigger today now, but it's still called the village of Kfar Chabad. So it is like a village. It's a cute little place. Anyway, so I don't know what year exactly that was established, but probably the late 40s or early 50s. And then I guess a short time after that, in 1956, some Arabs entered the village, and they're in one of the things they have in the village is that they're established is to have it as like a vocational school, agricultural school, so kids coming from all kinds of backgrounds can come there and like learn a trade in a Jewish environment. And these terrorists came in and they shot 5 kids and one teacher, and then another to
How
death.
old were these kids?
Probably like teens, I'm guessing. And then like another 10 were wounded. So it was like a really, here these people are coming, running away from not Nazis, running away from Stalin or whoever. And then they come to Israel and trying to start a new life. And now they get, you know, attacked by Arabs. And they were like totally freaked out. They're like, oh, it's a pogrom, and they didn't know what to react. It was just so difficult for them. And the one of the leading Hasidim that was there at the time was very famous Hasid called Rabbi Avram Mayor. Rabbi, long stories about him. He actually used to come visit my parents' house when I was very young. So he sat and he started to sing, and um, and he didn't know what to do. He said, "What should we do? Do we stay? Do we stay here? Do we leave? This is not a good place. If we're gonna we ran away from all the other people trying to kill us. Why should we be here?" So they wrote a letter to the Rebbe saying, "What should we do? Like, this horrible tragedy. This is back in 1956. In those days, what they make probably telegram. They use, the mail will take a long time. There's no other quick way except for telegram. And what was odd was that they did not get an answer from the Rebbe for a few days, and this like just kind of made the hurt so much stronger because of what's going on. Why is not the Rebbe not answering us? And finally, and so they're all like, just at loss what to do. And finally, they got an answer from the Rebbe, and it said, "Continue to build, and you will be comforted." And now that they had this answer from the Rebbe, they kind of like gave them like a certain like a lift, like a push to continue on. And they realized, hey, they have to stay there and they have to build. And it was all, now it became like in memory of these people that passed away, memory of these, these young people that passed away, they're going to continue on and build. And they said, oh, that's when they decided to build a vocational school. So before it was just an agricultural school. Now, because of that, they built a vocational school, and children from all over Israel, not particularly Chabad people, but any child that needed a place to learn and to study and to, kind of learn some type of trade would go there. And that's, and then, so what happens? They said, what happened? Why didn't they get a response from the Rebbe right away? So the first thing what happened was that when the people in New York, or the Rebbe secretaries in New York, got the message of what happened, they didn't want, the Rebbe was about to start a Farbrengen, to give a Rebbe talk, and they didn't want to like disturb him. They wanted to didn't want to get the news right before he started. So I figured they'll hold it off for to not tell him. Obviously, the Rebbe knows much more. He doesn't need them to tell him what happened to know what happened. And but at the Farbrengen, the Rebbe spoke a lot about self-sacrifice and how people have died Al-Kadosh Hashem, sanctification of God's name, and about building Israel, building the land of Israel, how important it is. And he cried a lot over these things. And so the people who knew what happened because the news didn't make it to America, really, except for this telegram that went directly to the Secretariat. Otherwise, no one really, knew about it. And the people who knew about it realized why the rebel was so emotional and crying at this Farbrengen. And then after the Farbrengen, they gave him the news. They officially gave him the news. He stayed. He didn't come out and talk to anyone for 3 days. He stayed in his room, and only then did he respond, because it hurt him so much too, obviously. But then he said, "Okay, we have to move on. We have to build. We have to do something out of this tragedy. We have to make something grow, something positive out of this tragedy." So when we have trauma, so what we're talking about today is what do you do with trauma? Is it something always, what do we do with it? Do we try to forget it and move on? Do we dwell in it? Do we try to reframe it? What's the right response to when something really bad happens to you? How do you go about it? Does it trigger you? Do you, what's your response? And that's going to be connected to this week's part. So, okay. So we'll begin with, usually we begin with the Parsha, and we say something happened in the Parsha, but this time we're going to begin with the letter of the Rebbe, about somebody who was very anxious about their health issues. Okay, so text number 1, I'm going to read it. Anna.
With respect to your healing, I make the following recommendations. Surely you're following the instructions of your physicians. To the extent that you can, stop dwelling on your health issues. Strengthen your faith in God, for whom nothing is impossible. Strengthen your bond to the tree of life, the Torah of Hasidus, or Hasidut, the living words of God.
Okay, so the Rebbe is telling somebody who's excessively worrying about his future, which many of us do, is the worrying just causes stress. So number 1, how do we stop worrying? Number 1, we do whatever guidance you could do. So if your doctor tells you to do this or do that, you follow it, let's say. Number 2, you move on. Number 3, be positive and have a confident attitude. And number 4, try to engage in positive behavior. And that will keep you from getting lost and stressed out and depressed and everything about your whatever situation that you have or that you're worried about. Okay, so similarly with the memories of past traumas. If some people will sit and dwell on something that happened to them that was very difficult and they can't move on. So one of the things we have to do is we have to let it go, we have to stop thinking about it, and we have to remember to trust in Hashem. Hashem is there for us, and He is going to, He's the one who's going to take care of everything for us. Okay. We also could turn our past trauma into something positive. Okay. So it's okay to revisit the trauma once in a while. And this is exactly what happens in this week's Parsha. We have a Parsha this week called, this week is a double Parsha called Klukas and Balak. Balak is what we're going to talk about today. Balak was a king of Moab, and he was a very, very big anti-Semite. Okay? And through discussing this Parsha, and the name of the Parsha, we're going to understand the whole how to deal with trauma. Okay, so text number 2. Do you want to read it? Okay. Can you read?
Yeah.
Okay, you found your glasses? Okay.
Okay. In the history of anti-Semites, there was no greater anti-Semite than Balak. All other anti-Semites attacked the Jews by war and bondage, something we could survive. Balak intended to weaponize Balaam's curses to destroy the entire nation.
Okay, so let me give you some background. The Jews were in the desert. It was getting to the end of the 40 years of when they were wandering around the desert. Okay. As they went through the desert, so most of the time of the 40 years, they're actually just pretty much in one place. But now they're getting ready to enter the land, so they start traveling again, start traveling closer to the land of Israel, and they pass near different borders of different countries. And one of those countries is called Moab. And the king of Moab, whose name was Balak, was kind of nervous. Hey, the Jews are coming by. What could I do to weaken them or stop them or just get rid of them? I don't want them to do anything to my country. And so he called a prophet. That prophet, God actually gave a non-Jewish person the ability of prophesying, and his name was Bilam. And he said, hey, instead of having war with these people, I'm going to see if I can get this Bilam to curse them. If he divinely curses them, that will strike them from top down, not like, oh, we have to go to war and I have to be worried about if my soldiers will make it and everything. Instead, let's just go to the top. Let's go from a spiritual place. Let's get this prophet to come, and say bad things from a divine place, and that will be the end of them. And what happened was, long story short, the Bilam, since he's a prophet, could only say what God gives him to say, and God didn't give him any curses to say. He only gave him blessings. So at the end of the day, he gave blessings to the Jewish people, and so they came out stronger in the end instead of weaker. And so this was what happened in the end. So although this was the end of the 40 years, it was after, remember we said how they were in the 40 years, and they kind of were growing at that time and learning their, gaining trust in Hashem and understanding what it is to be Hashem's people. And so they were maybe in a better place than when they first came into the desert. They still were kind of scared what's going to happen. Here, Balak wants to destroy us, not by taking us to war, but doing something else. And they had to so it's kind of traumatic for them. Oh no, what's going to be now? Does Hashem really love us? He's really going to protect us? Da, 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 da. So in the end, yes, everything worked out okay, but it was kind of like a traumatic experience. Okay, so that's the kind of the trauma that we're going to discuss in connection with how to deal with it. Okay, so what the first question is, the most pressing thing is here is, why in the world would we have a Torah portion named for an anti-Semite? Right? There's no parsha called Paro or something, There's, we try to always have good things and positive things. We want to take a positive spin on things. Why would we name it after an anti-Semitic, especially after it will remind us of this traumatic event that happened to us in the desert? So why is it named after a bad guy? Okay, so usually we don't even say their names, right? Or we, say something, which we'll discuss in a minute. We don't really want to say and give any life force to a really bad person. Yeah, okay. So why should we remember the aggressor in that way? Why, doesn't it trigger us? Why when we say Balak? Oh wait, why should we do that? So in general, Jews don't really perpetuate legacy of wicked people. We try to just want them to kind of fade away and disappear. So let's first read 3a. And I guess it's back to you, Hannah, because
the name of the wicked must be left to rot.
Ooh, okay. So that's why we it's another thing today, online, let's say there's some really bad, evil person out there. I don't know, let's say Saddam Hussein, I don't know, whoever, I mean, he's gone, but Ahmadinejad, whoever, they end up or a really bad guy who went and killed 100 people, right? They're posting him all over online. In the old days, they would not post a person's picture in the newspaper, right? You would kind of hide them. You don't want to everyone knows this person. Now they became so famous, they get their fame. And when we just kind of don't show anyone who they are, that way they don't get this honor or this, oh, everyone knows me, for my evil, but everyone knows me. So it's really bad to keep writing about them. Right, sometimes in the old days, even sometimes they would not write a person's name who did something who did some really bad crime. Maybe they'd have a funny name for him, right? But they wouldn't really, because you want to try to just let it fade. Don't give that person any extra honor, any extra attention that they need. So what does it mean? We must let them be left to rot. What does rot mean? Okay, so one way for evil to rot is to to curse them. Okay, Let's read text 3b. That's your turn.
Rabbi Yitzhak said, one who utters the name of a wicked person but fails to add a curse transgresses a positive commandment. What is the source of this commandment? The name of the wicked must be left to rot.
Okay, so sometimes we say a name of a bad, evil person, and then we say there's something we say Yamach Shemo. Means like may his name be obliterated. So there's actually a really funny story about this woman who was like becoming religious, and she was blind. And every time she would hear like these different big speakers speak, she would hear them say like Hitler, Joe Schmo, Joe Schmo, Joe Schmo. I couldn't understand what they were saying. And finally, she wanted to ask them. They're like, "Oh, we're not saying Joe Schmo. We're saying Yamach Shemo, which means." So number one is so we should try. Like we don't want to give any. We're not allowed to say the names of bad people. Okay, we don't want to give them any like extra life or anything. And a lot of times we don't even say their name. Okay, like I know in our family we were not allowed to say the name of anything bad, like when we were growing up. You know, of a person, or even for example of like the big C. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, really? Okay. So you always called it the big C.
We used to call it. Oh, it was called in Yiddish. We would say Yena Machlo, which means the disease.
Oh, right.
Like we wouldn't even say what it is. Yeah, or like right. Even like these bad people, we won't say. We wouldn't say their name. Like it's hard for me to like get used to like saying like like Hitler or
it's hard to do it.
Or a big one. Like was also not allowed to say. Let's say the name of Jay. We'll say we'll say that like another name instead.
JC, right?
Oh, so that's kind of like the first ones we would say Yushka or just J or just like whatever. So so it is a very important first thing not to say a really bad person's name or someone who caused a lot of harm to the Jewish people. Another interesting thing is 3C. We're not allowed to name a child after someone bad. I don't know who would want to, but go ahead, 3C.
What is the meaning of the name of the wicked must be left to rot? Rabbi Elazar said, decay will spread on their names, for we will not name others by their names.
Okay, so we don't want to add to the name. We want to perpetuate them just rather than be forgotten. So let them die off. Never mention their name again. Don't name anyone with the same name as them and let them just go. So it's not even a custom. It's actually a law. It's a law that we can't do that.
It's a halakhic.
It's like in Harry Potter.
Law.
You know, in Harry Potter, they won't name Voldemort by. Okay, you guys know Harry Potter, but
no. So this is really weird. Then why do we name a parsha after such a bad guy, Balak, who tried to hurt the Jewish people? It doesn't make any sense because
bad. He wasn't an anti.
But he was a tzaddik. He was a good person. Yes, he did a bad thing.
Was he a tzaddik?
But he was considered.
He wasn't.
I think he was considered a good thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, good person. Yeah. Yeah, he just had very different viewpoints, and yes, at a certain point, maybe he did something totally wrong. But yes, but he wasn't like a he wasn't an evil person. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so how is it possible? How is it possible we have a name of a parsha after this bad guy? And not even that. The story's not really about him because he just hires Bilam. The rest of the story is really about Bilam and his discussion with the with Hashem and with the Jewish people and what. But so anyway, so like he was the instigator, but he wasn't really like the main person in the story. Okay, and why is the story like so dramatized in the parsha? It has a whole long story with all the details. Like there are the stories that happen that we know of that are like one line in the Chumash, in the actual verse, it's like one line, and then the rest, and then like the whole explanation of it is in the Midrash. It's not even in like a lot of basic stories of that we know are not in the Torah. They're only like one-liners. Like there's a very famous story that was in today's Chumash about as the Jews were passing through some of the after the I guess before the story they didn't even know, but there were some countries that decided they're going to try to like ambush them, and there was like these like kind of like interesting mountains, or I don't know what they're called, that like jutted out, and they hid these people, and where the Jewish people were walking was kind of in the valley under the mountains, the bottom of the mountain, and they hid there. They figured they're gonna, like, as the Jewish people walk through, they're like, throw things at them, and sword, it's called so they'll shoot them with bow and arrows. They'll maybe throw rocks at them, whatever it is. And they're sitting there like hiding out in these like little ledges or edges that came out of the mountain. And the Jews start walking through, and Hashem made a miracle that the mountains kind of got like smushed together, got crushed together, and all the people that were sitting there waiting to ambush got smushed. So in the parsha, in the actual pasuk, it really says anything about it. It's Rashi, or who explains what really happened there. So like that's like wow, that's an amazing story, but most people don't even know that story. So like there's so many stories that are like barely written in the Torah. Here you have the whole parsha, which is all about the story and about this bad guy. So what is so important about it? Why are we like focusing on this? Okay. So there's another similar law that comes to that helps us understand what we're discussing. And that law is that you cannot say the name of an idol or a false god. Okay, like I said before, we don't say the name of Jay, we just say Yeshka or something. So you can't say the name of an idol. And let's read that. Okay, 4a.
Also, I can read too.
Oh, okay. I'll have you read next then. After
This is really wrong. Do not mention the name of other gods.
Okay, great. And now the sages say about that, Catherine, I guess you can read this.
Do not mention the names of other gods. For example, a person shouldn't say to someone else, "Wait for me beside a certain idol."
Okay, so you don't say, "Oh, meet me at the church." That would be considered like not such a good thing to say. Like, "Oh, right, you know where that store is? It's right next to, the Buddhist temple or something." We should, yeah, we wouldn't say those things when we were kids, when we were young. When we grew up, my parents would never, yeah, all these words we would not say.
Oh.
So, yeah, I'll say it because I'm explaining something to someone. Certain things I will not say, but right, we shouldn't say like, oh, so like in the old days, it was like a certain like a temple or idol. You don't say, oh, meet me at that, the blank 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 temple or whatever it is. It's better not to say it. Uh-oh, what happened? Hey, what just happened? That is so weird. 1 second. Catherine, what do you see on the screen?
Yes. It says, "Do not mention the names of other
Okay,
gods."
okay, I know why it fell
The
off.
same thing I just read.
Okay, no problem, because for me it fell off. Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
one, Overeaters Anonymous
Yeah.
was held in CH word.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I went.
That's a different question. Okay.
Okay. Also, I forgot yoga is really popular, and so are the Buddhas in the yoga studios, and I know people who will not go to them because it's there. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Okay, so that we'll discuss that all later. Okay. Yeah. So now there's an exception about mentioning the name of an idol. For 1 second. Yeah, okay, 4C. Okay, go for it. Okay, back to Hannah, Anna.
Is it Eula or Ula?
Ula, I guess.
Ula. When the sage Ula arrived, he overnighted in Kalenbo, a city named after the idol around which it was built. Rava asked him, "Where did the master overnight?" Ula replied, "In Kalenbo." Rava said, "But does the passage not state, 'Do not mention the names of other gods'?" Ula replied, "So taught Rabbi Yochanan. We are permitted to mention the name of any idol that appears in the Torah."
Huh. So this is interesting. Right, there are many places in the Torah where it does mention certain idols.
Yeah.
And so, hey, here it says you're allowed to mention the name of an idol if it appears in the Torah. Very interesting.
Is Kalenbo in the Torah?
I don't know. I mean, I never heard of it, so I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere, I guess. I guess it's somewhere. Let's see. Oh, it tells me. Okay. Anyway, so why can we mention idols that were mentioned in the Torah? So the answer to that will help us explain this whole idea of Balak being the name of the parsha. Okay. So a few reasons why we can mention the name of an idol that's mentioned in the Torah. So let's first start with number one is when the Jews were in the desert. This is a really interesting story. When the Jews were in the desert, right after they left Egypt, before they even got to the Red Sea. Okay. Hashem tells them, camp opposite the Baal Zephon. which was a big, I guess it must have been a big mountain that had like this idol that the people worshipped. So it's like a big stone or something in the desert. And like, and now that I go to like, we go visit these places around California, see these huge mountains or huge, things. You guys, oh wow, now I understand why these people, worship these things, because they look like the biggest thing around. It looked like, they decided it looked like a god and that they would worship it. So he told them to camp opposite that, and he used the word Baal Tzafon, which means like the what was like the name of the actual idol. So why would Hashem use that terminology? Kind of weird, right? 5a. The actual name of the idol. He didn't say, oh, camp over here, camp, latitude of this and longitude of this, or camp, 3 to 35 miles west. He said, camp opposite Baal Tzafon. The idol, yeah. Okay. 5a. Yeah. It's going to be you.
Okay. In front of the El Siphon, I saw that Rabbi Yehuda wondered why Hashem instructed Moses to have the Jews settle near the ocean in front of the El Siphon. Do we not say that it is forbidden to tell our fellow, wait for me, before a certain idol? Rabbi Yehuda concluded by observing that this is a difficult matter that requires deeper analysis. It seems to me that the answer is simple. This prohibition was only ever binding on humankind. It was never binding on God.
So interestingly enough, this is telling us that Hashem can mention the name of an idol, but we can't. Okay, but that's not so simple. We're gonna. Yeah. Okay, and another reason. Hi, Shelley.
Hi, sorry. Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late.
No problem. Okay, so another reason why the Torah mentions the names of idols, or we can mention the name that the Torah mentions. Let's see, 5b is Shelley, go ahead, read it, and then we'll do Catherine next.
Okay, any idol mentioned in the Torah may be mentioned. The reason, once it is mentioned in the Torah, it has certainly been obliterated.
Okay, so once Hashem mentions the name of an idol, that idol becomes obliterated. Okay, they don't exist anymore. Once Hashem mentions in the Torah, it's totally gone. And still kind of sounds weird. Something doesn't make sense about it, because there are idols that continue to exist after they were mentioned in the Torah. So let us read number 6. Catherine, want to read again?
Sure. God is different from human lords. A human lord tells others what to do and does nothing himself. God is different. What he does, he tells the Jewish people to do.
Okay, so this is another thing that doesn't make sense, because usually it says that God does the same mitzvahs that we do. He follows the laws that he gives us. So if so, then how is it possible that he is allowed to say the name of an idol and we're not? If he's telling us to do what he does, if he's telling us that he does what we do, then he wouldn't say the name of an idol either. So what's going on here? He has a different guidebook than we have. Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this doesn't really jive with what we've been talking about. Okay, he's not going to say, okay, I'm allowed to do this, but you aren't. Okay, yeah, right. So if Hashem can mention that the names of these idols, then why does Rabbi Yochanan say that the idols mentioned in the Torah are not? Then it's okay for us to say it. Okay, so this all this kind of like a little bit confusing. And if all the idols of the Torah are obliterated, right, as we said before, then why do we still hear about them in the prophets, in the book of prophets, in the Navi? Why these idols come up again and again, the ones that were dealt with, in the Torah, that were discussed in the Torah. They still existed once the Jews went to the land of Israel, right? The Torah and the Chumash, the 5 books, is only a trap till they got to Israel. But there's still a lot of these idols that are mentioned that were mentioned previously. So there's something's going on up here. Idol is some deity other than one God that we believe.
Can't it be a decorative accessory that you have versus
The statue, you mean?
And, yeah.
So that's,
I guess.
it's not so simple to have such a thing because it might be considered like an idol. So there are many different laws. Yes, and there's so much so that some people, and I would say most people not, and I don't know if today if anyone does this, wouldn't even allow their children to have a doll that was an exact replica of like a person.
Really? So when you say exact replica.
Meaning they let's say they wouldn't, let's say if the doll had like
like a
features just like a
Barbie doll or
person,
something?
yeah, they would like knock out the nose or something like that.
Wow.
There were such people that do that. And I don't know if anyone does that today, but
I guess it would
I'm just saying, but the
be-
idea is that we don't have like an image, because it does say do not carve graven images, you know what I'm saying, when it's in the Ten Commandments. So anyway, okay, so the Rebbe explains now. He's gonna explain to us what this all means. Okay, text number 7. Shelley.
Yeah, I knew you would call on me for the long one. To answer, Rabbi Eliezer ben Shimon meant to say that names of false deities mentioned in the Torah are obliterated in the minds of Jews who mention them. When the Torah mentions the name of a false deity, it is certainly to underscore its vanity, emptiness, and absolute lack of power. The Torah seeks to highlight the idol's utter falsehood and the error of those who worshipped it. It follows that the appearance of a false deity's name in the Torah reverses and nullifies any supposition that it might have power. On the contrary, it underlies the idol's emptiness and falsehood.
1 second. 1 second, there's more to it. 1 second.
Okay.
To continue, 1 second. Okay.
By the same token, when we mention the names of idols that appear in the Torah with similar intention, we too dismiss the idol's importance and substance. Idols that the Torah revealed to be without substance are as good as obliterated in our minds when we mention their names. Under such conditions, we are permitted to mention the name of the idol for the same reason that the Torah mentions it.
Okay, so I'm going to explain, so especially that I know you didn't hear it perfectly. Okay, so when the name of an idol is mentioned in the Torah, it's mentioned in a way that like kind of like scoffs at it, or it belittles its power. So when we say that when an idol is mentioned in the Torah, it obliterates it, it means like we realize how false it is. We realize how fake it is. The Torah is mentioning it to show that it's nothing. It has no power. It has no legitimacy. So then you can mention it to show, that's like, I think that's an idol. That's like not, you know, they think it's a god. It's not a god. It's a nothing. It's just right. It's a big fat stomach guy sitting on the counter at the yoga place, whatever it is, right? You kind of like make a joke out of it. That's okay. So that's how the Torah mentions it, to show that it has no validity. It's not really some kind of power that's going to help us or anything. So when we're talking about it like that it's like a nothing, it's a non-existent thing, it's a fake, that's okay. So as a Jew, we know that that there is no legitimacy to that thing. And when we're talking about that, like some type of deity or idol like that is fine. We know that it's worth nothing.
That if you think like that, I don't know the difference between what's a fake and not a fake. I don't know, like if I say like one word now, like that's not okay, but the other word, how do I know it's a fake?
No, I'm saying, okay, you didn't get it. What I'm saying is that if the power of the idol, if I say, well, you know, as Yvette Smith, who follows the Torah and believes in God, you know that anything but God is not real, is not true. Oh no, so that's what we're saying. We're saying that once God, okay, we're gonna get to the next part, but we're saying is that if we're mentioning the idol in the hey, kind of rude. We're saying that great to see you. Oh, she's never seen her. That's how long it's been since she's been on there. Hi, kind of rude. It's great to see you. Hi, kind of rude.
Hi.
Great to see you. That's how long. Okay, I know we're hearing ourselves stop. So what we're saying is that if we mention the name of an idol, and I'm gonna mute you, Hunter, because I think you're making us hear double. Hello? That's better. Okay, sorry, Hunter, but we could stay on, but just I don't know why your thing is echoing ourselves. Okay, so what we're saying is that if you're mentioning the name of a deity, an idol, some type of, you know, when I say like religion or some quote unquote God, you're mentioning it in a way that you know that it's not real, that only Hashem can actually give us anything, then we know that it's like, and we're mentioning in that type of a way, it's that's fine. That's like, because you're saying with the intention of, oh, this is really nothing, this thing, this deity, this idol, this whatever, thinks, people may think that has power, but we know it has no power. And when you're mentioning it in that way, that's okay.
When I say deity, by the way, I say
Deity. Okay, I see deity. I don't know. Okay.
This is what I'm thinking. If God says it in the Torah, that means it's fake.
Well, that just okay. We'll read text number 8, and that will explain that part of it. Okay, I think it's in text number 8, but we didn't get to that part of it. There's like another little nuance that helps answer what you're saying right now. Okay, so text number 8.
It could be me, yeah. Should I go?
Yeah. Okay, go for it.
When ordinary people mention the name of an idol, their intention is to use it as a reference, especially if they mention it for a significant purpose, such as referencing a meeting place, unintentional as it may be. Using the idol as a reference lends its significance. From God's perspective, however, the error of attributing significance to idolatry is impossible. On the contrary, when the true God mentions a false deity's name, or if it appears in his Torah, it is perforce nullified. The very articulation and revelation of absolute truth dismisses and excludes even the glimmer of a supposition that an idol is anything but utter falsehood. Similarly, when ordinary Jews in this same spirit utter an idol's name that appears in the Torah, they too highlight and underline the idol's complete lack of power.
Okay, so once Hashem mentions the Torah, since Hashem is complete truth, he is the truth, he's the epitome of truth, he shows all truth. Anything under that, anything that he's going to mention, it shows how false it is. It's kind of like brings that thing into nothingness. And when a Jew is mirroring that way of talking about an idol, because it was mentioned in the Torah, and it says, oh, the Torah, it says about this and this idol, when we say it in the same way, we're bringing out the truth of the Torah and bringing out the the falseness of the idol. Okay. As truth as the Torah is as false as that, as truth as the Torah and God is how fake and nothingness, it brings out the not, I'll say like the no validity, the delegitimizes no value of that thing, right? So someone may think, like a regular person walking down the street may think, oh, that thing has some value, but once God mentions in the Torah, it's like totally taking out any value of that, because God is truth. And then when we like kind of repeat that or say it and reference to something that's in the Torah, we're also kind of using that same like intention that God has, that it's a nothing. Okay. So once Hashem is saying it was truth, it shows how the idol is so the opposite of truth, has no power whatsoever. So yeah, well, we're not going to do that. Okay, so just totally illegitimizes it, as if anyone thought that had some legitimacy to it. Okay, just by Hashem mentioning its name. Oh, one second. 8 went longer. We skipped the last part of 8.
Oh, really?
Oh no, you read it, but okay, it wasn't on here. Sorry, it was on the screen. Okay, okay. So Hashem has to mention it, and that like kind of totally delegitimizes it, and then we can mention it because now it has no value or power. Okay, so and if he didn't mention a certain idol, then we shouldn't mention it either, because he didn't like kind of like put that total not that the idol has any legitimacy whatsoever, but it kind of didn't like, he didn't kind of like, I don't know how to say, like totally obliterate it. And then we want to mention it because maybe some people will think that it has some validity, and when we say it, it might give that deity some type of validity. Not that it hasn't, not that it's real, not that it's anything, but just like it might connote that. Okay, so we mentioned before that we do not want to perpetuate the name of a wicked person, right, or the name of an idol. So we don't want to, right? We don't want to name false gods by name, and we just want them to be totally nullified. So what, and we said the same for the wicked person. So can we use their name? So similarly, we do the same for the wicked person. So not mention their name, right? Or if we mention it, it's in a way of like nullifying them or delegitimizing them. Oh, they don't have anything over us. This evil person who tried to hurt the Jews, they're nothing. Okay, so let's read text number 9. Okay, go ahead, Bob. Yeah.
Rabbi Yochanan taught we are permitted to mention the name. Wait, we are permitted to mention the name of any idol that appears in the Torah. Similarly, we should be permitted to mention names of wicked people that appear in the Torah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the prohibition of not mentioning of different rationales, but we could compare how we approach it. The approach is the same. So just like we do not mention an idol, so we shouldn't perpetuate it. And we don't mention a wicked person, so we shouldn't perpetuate him or his evil. But if it's to show how illegitimate they are, how illegitimate their power is, then it's okay. So for example, the Torah commands us to remember Amalek, right? Amalek was like one of the biggest anti-Semites. We do not mention, we are supposed to remember Amalek because because of the same reason why we mentioned Balak here. This is what it is. Okay. So Balak hated us, but he failed in his plan. He failed in trying to destroy us or get rid of him, get rid of us. So it's a big embarrassment for him, right? The outcome of what happened of the story of Balak and trying to get Balaam to curse the Jewish people, and in the end they were blessed. For him, this is like the most embarrassing thing, right, that happened. So when we name the parsha after him, it's like the biggest joke on him. It's like scoffing him, right? We're obliterating his power. His spell of anxiety or fear over the Jewish people becomes like nothing, and we could just laugh at it. It's like, oh, he's kind of trying to scare us, ha ha. Look what happened when he tried to scare us. So when these things happen again to us and some anti-Semite comes in to scare us, we have to remember, we have to remember to think like, instead of being traumatized or triggered, right? When something like, something previously in our life happened to us that was bad, how are we going to approach that? So let's read text number 10. Okay. Catherine, you still on? Can you read?
Yes. The Torah tells the story of Balak to broadcast the breakdown of his evil plan. He said to Balaam, "Please come and curse these people for me. Perhaps I will be able to wage war against them." And this plan was foiled. This is not in conflict with the dictum, "The name of the wicked must be left to rot." On the contrary, such mention increases his shame and accelerates the rot of his wicked name. The same is true of naming the Torah portion after Balak. When we use the name Balak in reference to a Torah portion, we refer to him as the Torah does, not to perpetuate his name, but to amplify his shame.
I like how that ended. Okay. So we use his name to undermine his power. Okay. It's a greater accomplishment to do that than just to ignore it. So we could just say, okay, we're not mentioning Balak ever again. We're just gonna kind of, let his name kind of just fall out of the rot and just fall into nothingness. Mm-hmm. But no, we say, oh, Balak, oh, ha ha, remember that guy? He tried to hurt us in this way, and instead he made the biggest fool of himself. And we do it like that, it kind of gives us strength, it gives us confidence. Hey, we're not scared of this kind of person. We're gonna remember what happened then, and we're gonna trust in Hashem again then. So it shows like I once listened to Rabbi Manis Freeman, and he was like saying how when something like God forbid happened to somebody, and they can look back and laugh at that situation that happened to them, they know they recovered. They know like they've gotten over that thing. Okay.
Wait. They got over it when what?
They're able to look back at that and laugh instead of like looking back and saying, "Oh my God," let's say God forbid something really, really bad happened, right? Someone was abused, and if every time they think like, "Oh my gosh," and they start to get like, whatever. Yeah. So, but when they can look back and just laugh it off, that's how you know they really are recovered. But just it reminds me of many years ago, my niece, she and two friends were babysitting for a family. The parents like went out of town just overnight, and they were like teenagers. And in the middle of the night, there was a fire in the house, and these three girls had to get all the kids out of the house And like they all, I'm saying, thank God they all like got out to safety, but the whole house was like gone, burnt to the ground. And I remember like after that, every time she would hear let's say a fire engine, like a fire siren, she would like get all, shake or whatever it is. Like she would kind of, so it's, so we have like, so when you can say, do something, see something, hear something, feel something, and it not trigger you, you're over it. And that's when, if the Jewish people could say Balak or the name of anti-Semite and not be triggered and just say, ha ha, that guy, he tried to destroy us, he didn't win. That's when we know that that's when it kind of like boosts us up and that makes us fall down. Because every time that we trigger, we still are victims. I guess it must have been something wrong with the electric or something. I don't remember. I'm guessing. I don't remember the details. It was a long, long time ago.
Where did that happen?
Chicago.
What?
Chicago. It was like probably like 30 something years ago. Yeah. Anyway,
Excuse me, I have a question. Why, for example, wasn't Paro named in a chapter or some other bad figures? Why Balak in particular?
yeah, that's what we were saying. I think because what Balak we discussed at the beginning, I don't know if you were on then yet or not. I think you were. I think you were, but was basically that I think the answer is that Balak didn't use the regular means of trying to hurt the Jewish people, like the regular make them suffer physically or try to bring them through a war. He was trying to get a divine curse on them.
Okay,
So
I don't think I
a whole
heard
different
that.
direction.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So the result of Balak's story is a positive because it wasn't just that we neutralized, something or that we, whatever it was, but it was more that we took that negative thing that happened and we turned it into a positive. It gained our power in a physical way because we got more blessings through it. Because in the end, Bilam, the prophet he hired, blessed the Jewish people. And we left this attempt that Balak tried to hurt us, so in a much greater way. And also, one of the things that Bilam did prophecy at that time was the coming of Mashiach, which is one of the few places, one of the very few places in the Torah that actually explains a little bit about the coming of Mashiach, which is very interesting. That came through him. Okay, let's read text number 11 to explain that. Shelly, you want to do it?
Sure. Balak's evil intentions were not only neutralized, as when an idol is obliterated, rather hiring Balaam also helped the Jews. It resulted in transcendental blessings for the Jewish people. This is a much greater achievement than neutralizing a false deity. When we nullify a false deity, a denial of God's unity, we must obliterate it. Balak's story is different. The wickedness and hatred that caused him to hire Balaam to curse the Jews were not merely neutralized, they ended up aiding the Jews with transcendental blessing.
Oh, there's more. 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry, this I guess a lot of long ones. They keep saying continue. I don't realize. Okay.
This is an even deeper reason for naming the Torah portion after Balak. Through him, more accurately by him hiring Balaam, the destiny of the Jewish people was enhanced.
Okay, so it's kind of basically what I explained. Okay, so it brought greater and better things as opposed to just neutralizing it or just forgetting it. Is the gate closed?
No, it's open.
Oh, okay.
But it wasn't like a traffic guy you saw, was it?
Oh, no. Okay. So why do we tell his story? So it doesn't just like, take away the past trauma, but it reframes it. It's not like, oh, we're just ignore the past trauma. We're just going to try to like put it away in a suitcase and never let it come out again. But we're going to reframe this past trauma and give us the power to overcome future traumas. So when we feel insecure by today's anti-Semitic climate and like, oh my goodness, maybe I should put my Star of David inside. Maybe I should not let someone know that I'm Jewish because, it's, the climate here is getting worse. We have to remember that Hashem is watching us. Hashem is there for us. And just like he was able to save us from Balak, he could save us from everybody else. And Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon says, 12a.
You want me to continue?
Someone else, huh? Okay,
Sorry,
go
my
ahead. And then
down.
Catherine. Oh, Catherine will be after that. Okay.
You want me to do this sentence?
Yeah, so do it, Shelley, and then we'll do Catherine.
Fear not sudden terror or the destruction of the wicked when it comes.
Okay, 12b, Catherine.
They may take counsel, but it will be foiled. They may speak words, but their plan will not succeed, for God is with us.
Okay, so these two verses are actually said at the end of davening. Okay, we shouldn't be scared of the anti-Semites. Their things are not going to come to fruition. So when they kind of rev up their engines, we have to remember of Balak and remember how his plot failed. And we have to be strong and confident about that. We have to like think good and we'll be good. And when we do what Hashem wants, he will watch us. So that is why we have a parsha that's named after him, to give us strength and confidence and let us realize that we can do this without fear. We should not have fear over such a thing. And so basically back to the beginning where we said, how do we deal with trauma and its triggers? So we have to learn how to look back at it and gain strength from it. We cannot allow ourselves to be defined by it, but our life must be lived. 13a. Anybody?
Okay, yeah. We can plainly see that sad memories, especially horrific memories, enhance our pessimism for the present and future. In turn, pessimism depletes our energy, which shuts down all creativity and efforts to rebuild. For such enterprises specifically require trust in God and a joyful disposition.
Okay, so we should embrace our life. Let's say I'm a survivor of a trauma, God forbid the people who survived the Holocaust by chanting, what happened, many of them after the Holocaust, what did they do first? They went and they got married, had a family. And like, in a way they could say, oh my gosh, why should I have love again if my loved ones were killed? Or why should I live again if life was so terrible and bad? But they kind of did exactly learn this lesson from Balak, and they just, knocked Hitler in the face, by raising a family and continuing on with their lives. And many of them, moved to other countries that were friendlier and created, great lives for themselves and were able to build up. And so take that memory and channel it to something positive and try to reframe the memories to empower us. There's a lot of people who can learn from. There's a woman, Edith Ager. You guys can look her up. She's really amazing, Holocaust survivor. There's a woman, she just passed away recently. Her name is, she's like tagged on Instagram, and she wrote a book called The Redhead of Auschwitz. Very interesting book. And there's another woman, Lily, I can't remember her last name. Her grandson helps story her on Instagram also. Lily, I don't remember her last name. I'll look up. And she and all these people are saying, we take what happened to us and we're going to go on forward. And many, many other survivors. And whatever, God forbid, came your way, or whatever trauma someone may have gone through, if you can take that and move on, don't let these past experiences drain you, but instead try to help it make you search forward. Obviously, easier said than done sometimes, but on the other hand, it is a powerful lesson. Let's start 13b, Shelley.
In our post-Holocaust era, we cherish the memory of the sacred martyrs. May God avenge their deaths. It is important that our generation know about the Shoah, and even more important that they never forget that the 6 million sanctified God's name. On the other hand, considering the teaching of our sages that action is primary, it is most important that we remember our greatest obligation, to respond to the Holocaust by doing all that we can to rebuild the lives of Jews and the verve of Jewish life in the greatest quantitative and qualitative measures.
Okay. 1 second, there's more as usual. It doesn't seem so big on my page, but yes, they want to make sure bigger fonts.
This is the correct response and the correct war to wage against Hitler and his successors. May their names be obliterated, who sadly, rather than having decreased, have perhaps even increased, albeit in in alternate forms and guises.
Okay, so I want to show you something. So there is a woman here in LA. We did have her many years ago come and speak at one of our women's luncheons. Her name is Devori Kryman. She has a really, I want to say, traumatic but fascinating story. Besides for losing a few children in like very young infancy or whatever, young toddler years, she lost a son who was about to get married. And you would think she walks around with like a long face or sad or whatever, but she writes a book, she wrote a book, whatever. But so when she launched her book, she had a small, intimate like gathering, kind of like a celebration of her son's life. And I was like, oh no, it's gonna be a little bit like heavy or this or that. I came with my mother-in-law. She only invited like people who were kind of intimately involved in different ways of, in her, I guess, life story. And you came and you felt like you were celebrating a party. So she really took her trauma and whatever happened to her in her life, and she figured out, she learned through a lot of things how to celebrate it, how to like look at how to be happy and light and try to move on and build from there. And like, and at this party, even though the whole party was about her son and about his death in a way, it was really about his life. And there was not one like sad or heavy moment at this theme. Even like, she spoke, her husband spoke, her kids spoke, different people spoke all about her writing the book and about, all of us kind of knew the story. So we didn't really speak about the story itself, but it was just a super amazing example of this idea of like surging forward, and not just ignoring it or not just trying to pack it up or anything. It was she really reframed her unfortunate situation. No one should ever go through such a thing, to live and to, let her son's, life live on. So yeah, it is a bit of a heavy book, the book itself. I mean, if you don't know the story, I knew the story, so it wasn't so heavy for me, but if anyone wants to borrow it, I have it. Huh? It's called Even If I'm Not, and the author, her name is Devori Kryman. Even If I'm Not, because it's a story about her son where he was he played a lot with words and stuff and that, like, whatever. So that was just like a story with him. It was Even If I'm Not. Yeah, you can take it. Okay. And I just want to end off with one more thing. Let me see if I can find it here. About Elie Wiesel. He writes here about his visit with the Rebbe, or his first visit. So it's called "I Shall Teach You to Sing the Night Elie Wiesel Met the Rebbe." Let's see how long this is. I guess it is pretty long. So I could just share this, how he discussed with the Rebbe how he could be happy after all he went through. The Rebbe, picks him up. So I can copy this link and just share it. It's kind of long. Anyway, I want to say first of all, Hannah Ruth, welcome. I could try to unmute. You try to unmute, but you were just like, we kept on hearing ourselves every time. Let's see if I ask to unmute, if it makes a difference. You have to unmute. You're still muted. Oh, it's so nice to see you, Hannah Ruth. Well, we don't hear you. To unmute.
Yeah, there. I found the right thing to tap. So is it still echoing?
Let's
Is
see.
the echo gone?
Still echoing a little bit. If I don't talk, we're okay.
Oh, well, it's good to come. I skimmed it, so I thought you were starting the date. And so I came home, I was grocery shopping, I dashed in and I opened up my computer. Oh my gosh, I've missed most of it. So I'm free on Tuesday night. So I said, oh, I'm going to go.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to mute you again so we don't hear the echo. But thank you for joining, and yeah, it was really, really good to see you. But we do. You could read it yourself. You could Zoom. We also record a lot of times on Zoom, Connor Roots. I could send you the link of my YouTube channel, so you can watch it on your own time. But I did want to say that's my grandmother's yard site tonight. So I want to say in memory of Brina Bas Yosef. She was my father's mother, and she lived a pretty long life, and I want to do the class in memory of her. And she's where I learned how to cook and bake. She was a good baker and cook.
It was also my grandfather's yahrzeit last week. Yitzhak Yisrael ben Eliyahu Vitorbi.